Hi Barker with Tax Survival. Today I'm doing a little video on honestly just what I have in my pockets, or EDC, to see if I could get by with at least the bare minimums. And obviously as the days go on, the survival trip goes on or whatever, I would have to start getting some things off the landscape and implementing different things into my plan. But as for now, I don't have a lot to work with. I got the normal cordage that we carry every day. I've got a Leatherman, an SAK, I carry a Switchman wrap, I carry a tourniquet. Usually I don't have this, so in the video you'll see it's a habit that I put it on, but I'm not going to actually use my big knife because I don't carry it every day to work and everything that I do in the grocery store in today's time. What I've come across here is there's all kind of shelters. I could easily cut one cut, prop some stuff up, but I've got something here. It looks like there's actually no water flowing into this. It just looks like something's uprooted. Everywhere there's like a low spot, it's kind of wet, but here, actually in here, other than the little bit of snow that's been protected by the shadows, it's actually dry down in there. I've got almost one side of my shelter already here, so just implementing a little bit of here, stuff across the top, and a few little sticks across the top here, I think I can get up in there and have me a little shelter in no time by using no cordage. And so we're gonna go from there and see how it turns out. So obviously over time I'm looking for a water source. I'm not quite there yet because I'm on my first day of obviously being lost in the woods. So what we're looking at here is I'm looking for water sources by either tracking down, the side of a ravine or water. You can obviously tell there was water flow through here. So I've come down far enough from where I'm going to set up my camp, but I don't want to be so far away that I'm lugging water or having to come down, because at this time, what I told you earlier in the previous part of this video, is that I'm operating off of an EDC, which is basically what I have in my pockets. I don't have a container with me. I'm unprepared, like a lot of people come out in the woods and end up being. So where I'm at now is I've come across here and I've come to a spot where I can start seeing moisture and it keeps just going down. So from here, what I'm doing is I'm not really worried about water. If I want to get a little bit of water here, if you come in here close enough, you can actually see there's water actually coming off this little stem of a leaf. That would be enough that over time I probably could collect a handful or so, just more or less for psychological reasons or whatever, to get a little bit of water in my mouth or dry my mouth out. But it's coming from different things. But what I'm going to try to do here is clear out enough to where I can have a little bit of a collection point and operate and then come back later. So obviously digging with your hands, it's going to get cold. Hypothermia, it's depending on, it's about 30 degrees out here or so today. I haven't checked the temperature, but I cleared out enough to where you can see there's a consistent flow here, and it's enough to operate off of. But instead of using my hands or worrying about hypothermia, smart thing would be to go away from that and get to something where you have a digging stick. So like I said, I don't spend hours looking for a digging stick. I don't spend a lot of time. I'm probably going to go to the nearest green item I find and then come up with some type of quick digging stick that I know is secure enough to get me started. And that's about what I'm going to operate off of. I'm not looking for nothing fancy. I'm trying to keep my hands and kind of my clothing dry. But I need something to get started with. So all I'm going to do, dig me out enough of a pit where I have some collection. Get the leaves and debris out of there. And put it down enough to where if it's compact, it might hold a little bit better. And we will come back in a little bit and see where we stand on our water source. All right, so a lot of times we don't always have the world's perfect rake with us. Obviously, I don't have a whole lot of anything with me. Other than what I showed you in the beginning of the video. So a lot of times it's just makeshift, on the fly operation, thinking outside the box and rolling with it. If it works, it works. If it don't, I don't do a ton of editing. A lot of times I do different segments, like this video is going to have different segments in it, but the only editing I really do is whatever Carley adds to it. I usually roll with it. If I stutter, if I make mistakes, then I roll on with it and call it good. So, like I said, quick makeshift rake, just so that I'm not having to do this all by hand. If it was a little bit colder, obviously anybody that knows me knows that I'm usually burning up, so it's 30 degrees out here probably, and I'm still sweating. So I've got to be careful, because setting into the night, it's obviously going to get cold, and if I'm soaking wet with all I've got is what I got on, plus a t-shirt, everything else has to come off the landscape. So if you notice right now, this obviously would take a long time to do by itself. I don't really want to get my clothing wet, but I also don't want to freeze to death tonight. So what you got's what you got, and then from there you got to hope that you can get it dried out in time by airing it up. But a quick tie off. Running the hood down best I can. So I'm gonna try to make a ball here so that I gain as much holding space as I can here. And then all I'm gonna do is roll with it. Obviously from here, I'm not going very far. But if I had made trip back and forth, trip back and forth, trip back and forth, it obviously would take a lot more time than operating off here. Plus, as I was scouting around over there, there's a tree over there that has leaves about that big. That's gonna make this go a lot quicker. So obviously I'm just using it as a sack, because I have no garbage bag, I have nothing with me. So I'm operating off of what I got. And then I'm rolling with it. Obviously I'm gonna operate as close as I can, but right there near my shelter there's a lot of briars and stuff. And to be honest with you, I'm really not wanting to tie that into my shelter, so trying to stay a little bit out of the briar pack. And as we're talking, I'll kind of go through why I think this area. Obviously you'll see in the video that I've seen a draw or ravine go down through there, and it obviously was right there. So I'm probably 50 meters or less from my water source. I've got an opening, which is the best opening I have, so I've got to work with what I've got. But what I also see is once I get these leaves, debris down, right here behind me is what I'm looking at, is there's a ton of that yellow grass that's dead. So obviously I'm going to use anything I have, and if that's soft and it's dry, standing up, some of these leaves have some dampness to it. So obviously what I'm going to do is supplement it with the dry grasses and lay that on top as a moisture barrier, because at this time, all I've got is what you see. All right, obviously toward the end of it, got my shelter covered for now. From now, I'm just going to use a bunch of grass bundles. I've turned this inside out, and I'm getting it up because I was kind of watching the sun as I go. I didn't want to get too close to dark because I know I'm going to have to add this. But somewhere here, I'm going to try to find some way to get this up in the air and let that sun dry that out. It's actually not that wet compared to what I thought, but I'll take it drying out and getting any of the moisture out of there, because obviously that's the only clothing I have for tonight. All right, as you can see, we finished up here. I've probably got, I'm just assuming, about 12 inches of debris on top there. So I feel like the convection part of my shelter is going to be pretty solid. I tried to eliminate, without being claustrophobic here or being so tight that I couldn't breathe, to create enough space where I felt comfortable in here, but at the same time as I'm not trying to heat up a complete like condominium here. I've got enough space that you can't really see once you go in there. It kind of goes to the left. So I've got enough space measured out here. I laid down in there to start with before I even started this to see about where I came to. So my feet should end up about right in this area to where I can get out if I need to or whatever. As far as debris wise, this was actually, as you can tell, a pretty deep hole. So I'm setting on probably 12 inches uncompressed of material. A lot of this is a little bit in the front. It looks like it's more leaves, but behind us here, what you're gonna see is there's a lot of dry grasses. So what I did when I built this shelter, I made sure I paid attention to a couple different things. When I picked my shelter location, I picked an area where a couple different things was going on. I looked up, I didn't see anything like Widowmaker. Well, you know, on the 5Ws here, I've got weather. I don't have to worry about the rain runoff. I wasn't on a wildlife trail, so a lot of things played in, but I'm not too far away from my signaling. I've got behind me, as you can see where it opens up, sometimes it's just not ideal conditions. I've got a field over to my left. I've got one up on top of the hill in front of me, and I got a little bit of an opening here. So if it comes to search and rescue, I'm gonna try to get to one of them 3 locations. Like I said, 50 meters from my water source. And then now that I've got water established, we'll go back down and check that in a minute. I've got shelter established. You know, doing the rule here, I'm looking at probably, just guessing because I didn't bring a watch on purpose. I'm looking at probably a couple hours from sunset. So sun's been setting around 5:30 area. So I know I've got a couple hours. So whatever I want to get done, I've got to get done because all I have is my limited service on my phone, that little bit of flashlight. And I really don't want to be tying my battery up with my flashlight because if I do roam around during the daytime and find service, I'm not trying to fight with my service and my battery power versus running a flashlight all night. All I need to do is get my water in me before bedtime, curl up in here, and then we'll worry about food and stuff tomorrow. All right, as you can see from the last segment there, kind of just redirected a little bit of the water. In a matter of probably about 2 or 3 minutes, we're already collecting water. Like I said, I was operating off my EDC out of my pocket, other than using my t-shirt and, you know, collecting water and then taking it up and wringing it out, which would be a useless use of my t-shirt because I'm going to need it for warmth. We're probably about 30 minutes, it seems like, from you know, the sun going completely down and being dark or getting dark. All right, so if you watch this from the beginning, what you noticed is that I operated with nothing but off the landscape. Yeah, there's perfect conditions where if I had a tarp or if I had different things, or if I carried a poncho like I should. A lot of people just get caught with their, you know, their pants down sometimes or whatever, and we got to operate with what we got. I wanted to show you that with zero cordage and nothing but basically an SAK, I haven't even got to my Leatherman. And to be honest with you, you know, we went through kind of a couple different things, and it's like, well, what are you operating off of? So I'm basically operating off the things you see right here. I've got the Slishman wrap. I carry my normal cordage that I still have because guess what? If this gets cold tonight, what I'm gonna have to operate with? I'm gonna have to operate obviously with a bow drill or some materials that you see me gather on the way. So you never pass up a resource. I didn't pass up water. I didn't pass up a down tulip poplar. So I grabbed everything I needed for a bow drill because honestly, that's where I'm at. Now, with that being said, oh my gosh, somebody's gonna say you should have carried a Bic lighter. And obviously we know that, we've heard it 1,000 times, we teach it, and I have a lighter with me. But the reason is that this is that if for some reason this didn't work, I'm operating off the fact that imaginarily I don't have that, okay? And right now, like I said, this cordage is gonna come into play for another reason. So I didn't wanna tie my cordage up and then have to take my shoulder down, put my shoulder back up, be able to do a bow drill if my lighter didn't work. Even though you saw that I had one and no one needs to comment that I need a Bic lighter, I have a Bic lighter, but it's not working right now for some reason. Like I said, I got my Leatherman. I operate off of my tourniquet. I do have my knife, but you haven't seen me use it one time, and all you've seen me use is the shirt off my back. If I didn't have the paracord, would I go to my boot strings? You're right, I'm not gonna freeze to death, so I'd operate off of what I've got. I'd use anything on my body to try to make a bow drill, to use cordage or whatever. I don't need this at all. I could pull this out in a heartbeat, use my glasses, anything on me I would try to use, you know, in a survival situation. So now we're going to try to get up in this shelter. I'm going to put my stuff back in my pocket because you obviously don't leave anything lay around, but you see that that's all I've got with me that I've been operated off of. And I honestly have not used anything on the side. I used that man-made rake, like I said, until the end, and most of it was gathering off of the landscape and operating with what I had. So now we're going to try to work our way back into the shelter and see where we stand. If you can still hear me, like I told you, I measured it out to where I was about where I needed to be. I've probably got about I'd say I'm setting at about an 18-inch from top to bottom, probably about 12 inches of loose material compressed. Probably went down to maybe 6 or 8 inches. I don't see any daylight, so I've got everything kind of locked in here, but I've still got a little bit of an airflow if I need to breathe or anybody's worried about suffocation. So as of right now, actually, to be honest with you, it's pretty comfortable. And guess what we're gonna do? Tonight we're gonna try to see if we can make it through the night with the temperatures dropping down to about 22 degrees with just the clothes off my back. The only thing I'm gonna add to this is that I'm gonna get a large bundle and I'm gonna pull that bundle in to make my makeshift door as I finish up tonight. But right now I've got a lot more things to get ready to try to gain as much knowledge, survival, SAR, everything that I can get ready before daylight, for dark, before I run out of time. So I'm gonna leave that open for now, crawl back out of here and get on the next part of my survival priorities. All right, operating from the outside, that's what we would be operating with tonight before bedtime and until the morning. And then, like I said, I got enough material inside there to probably pull around me, and then also maybe put some over top of me. Like I said, I used all the dry material and tried to keep it on top so that I wasn't the only thing, because I don't have an actual layer to get in between me and the ground. All right, operating off the same thing I was talking about earlier. I don't want to lose my cordage. Not that I don't know ways to put it back together, but kind of wanting to keep what I got. So what I done was carve the little notch in there. All that notch. It's the way I do it. Doesn't mean it's the way it has to be done. And what I operate off of, when my notch is deep enough, run with what we got there. And then obviously we're gonna have to work on our set. So I'm gonna have me a little bit of a baton. Get my bird's nest processed. And we're gonna put an SAK to the test, even though this is not what it's designed for. It's what we're gonna operate with for now. So we're gonna go through this. All right, operating off what we got to work with. We're working with this right here. Get this little piece trimmed off. Normally I would have not even cared about that, but what I seen there was obviously a decent ember catch, which is going to come to play here in a little bit. Not that we didn't have plenty of bark laying around, but we'll lay that to the side. Now we are operating off of, I don't even go worry about that because that may come off. We're going to figure out how tough like I said, it's not a perfect set. You're operating off what you got, using what you got. Instead of beating on my knife any more than I have to, I'm going to utilize what I got. All right. I say we're rolling with them two pieces, and now we're operating off the spindle we got here. I don't get real particular with the bark. I'm not really worried about the bark, but if it's one of the things that concerns you, then get rid of it. I am concerned a little bit about this piece here on the end, so we are going to get rid of it. Like I said, we're getting close to dark. Fire is the biggest thing. I'm not worried about prettiness. I'm not worried about the world's best bow drill. I'm not worried about critics. I'm worried about getting going here and seeing if we can operate over the fire and have it for tonight. So now we are down to the bearing block, which we all know needs to be a green hardwood. So using an SAK, it was about as hard to do the cut here as it was to make the rest of the pieces. So as you've seen there just a second ago, we were at the point of trying to get a decent quick spindle. Like I said, I'm still looking at maybe an hour and a half of daylight left. So what I did was I punched out my spindle. You've got obviously a little bit more blunt end for the bottom, a little bit more narrow top for the friction, just like we got, trying to fit this all together, trying to see if this will all piece together, get our notch in our board here. Always put your tools up so that you don't lose them, because that'd really suck with this limited amount of gear that I have. All right, so I ain't got much other than what I've been playing with right here, so we're gonna run with what we got, see if it works out. And like I said there a few seconds ago off camera, some of these parts are just so tedious that he's trying to operate off of the bird's nest and trying to get some bird's nest material ready. Playing with what we got, catching the good parts here. Inner bark of a tulip poplar we found there a little bit ago on the way. Got all the same pieces off there. So like I said, I gathered what I could with what I had. And sometimes these are pretty hasty. These aren't the ones, like I said, I'm running with a t-shirt and a sweatshirt. I know when that sun goes down, it's going to get a lot colder. It's foolish when you see me out here in a t-shirt, but if you've ever been to the school, you'll know that I run in a t-shirt a whole lot of times, but that doesn't mean I can run in a t-shirt and a sweatshirt when it's 20 degrees at night. So like I said, we're running with what we got. And if it's a little bit of a trust factor here, that something you think I pulled from somewhere, but I'll tell you what, you can just feel the dampness in this. So we're running off of a couple different things here. Trying to keep my pieces off the ground because everything here is already soaked enough that I don't need any more challenges in my life here. that ain't lit, it ain't lighting. Run out for a minute till I get my breath. As you can see, I got a sustainable fire to get warm there. Some of the radiant heat might work its way up in there. I was trying to kind of feel to see what happened there, but a little reluctant there of a fire being that close to get the radiant heat off of it without doing some other protective things or whatever. So more than likely, I'm gonna get this fire put down or put aside here or whatever, get it put out and crawl in there for tonight. I've got my grass bundle here. Between that and that bundle there, I'm going to try to block off that entrance once I get up in there, tie this all in together, and see if we can make it through the night. All right, as you can see from the inside, I think we got pretty good coverage. I don't have any light holes that I see anywhere. My only opening is where I get in and out of, obviously, and that's all the way around, as you can see. I'm obviously fully inside here. Actually, if I go back some more, I can get my legs all the way in, but I'm completely covered and got enough space if I had to, you know, keep some dry materials for firewood, etc. I got some room for to keep my dry firewood in here. If I had anything else with me other than my EDC, obviously I could get my bag in here and keep it dry. Had my bag with me, obviously we'd have a lot more comfort than we had today, but hey, it worked out. I got shelter, I got water, I got fire all off the landscape. Kind of have to look and see where I started, but in the 3-4 hour mark, maybe a little bit longer, I'm not sure without looking. I'm finishing up the video now. That's, you know, fire, water, and shelter that would have got me through the night, and then we would obviously started working on some type of food, hopefully tomorrow, if that would have happened. If not, we go a little bit longer with food than we can without shelter, water, and fire. So as of right now, I'm going to take it as a win. I've got my bundle right outside the door there. All I got to do is reach out, pull my bundle here, block my hole, and I'm ready to see if I can get through the night. All right, what we have now here is about 2 o'clock in the morning, give or take. It started raining. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm probably about an hour from sunrise. As you can see, I had probably about 12 inches of dry grass and leaves compiled here in order to fight the conduction from the ground. At no time really did my back or, you know, underneath get cold, but got a little chilly on top because, like I said, you've seen the clothing I had. What I did do, it was minimal, but just to help with somewhat, I had quite a bit of stuff here, and what I did was bundled around it and pulled it closer to me. As you can see, about 4 hours of rain. So far the shelter has held up. I don't like to lie in my videos. I don't try to say anything that ain't true. I brought a headlamp with me just because I didn't know if the lighting from the phone would work, and it pretty much sucked, to be honest with you. It was very minimal. So other than this use right here, and then getting ready to go down and show the water collection part, other than that, there was no headlamp use. As you can see, obviously my water collection area, what I had to work with. Probably not my number one choice, but number one versus zero, I'm always going to go with number one. but I've got multiple places here I could actually have 2 collection points. But you can see it's enough that I could get water out of it. I actually backtracked all the way up, all the way to the top of the hill. Didn't see any dead carcasses, didn't see anything that, as far as concerning, that would contaminate the water other than the actual natural debris out here in the woods. So that's what I have to work with. But did it work? I'm gonna go with yes. Earlier when I went to bed, obviously I had a little bit of moonlight and the rain moved in, like I said a little bit earlier. You can see that I lost about all my light. But to realistically give people the scenario of what you're working with when you're lost, you fight a kind of a little bit of a battle on everything to do with survival. The bow drill is obviously going to get you fire if your lighter doesn't work or don't have one with you. But you burn a lot of calories in processing the bow drill. In the process of the bow drill, obviously you burn a lot of calories to get fire. So there's almost like a win-lose where you have to decide, hey, if it's 20 degrees, I might have to have a fire. If it's 0 degrees, I might have to have a fire. If it's 50, do I really need a fire, or can I get through the night by using some things off the landscape? And as you can see, I'm gonna turn around away from where the sun would rise and get to the other side here. But this is the darkness that you're looking at when you're actually out here. If your phone would have died, or you didn't have a headlamp, or didn't prepare in some way, lighter, or whatever the case may be. But I just want to give you a little bit of an idea of what blackness looks like out in the woods when you're not near the city, you're not near a lot of things, when you kind of have that normal city life light that shows up. But you know, the only thing you can even see in my video is there's some light way off in the distance there, which would be great for search and rescue if that come to play, and I found that. Obviously would head toward that direction. So, all right, as you can see, this is about what I had to work with. Kind of the inside construction, not a lot of space because I wasn't trying to heat the world or whatever. But like I said, other than one leaf I drug in here, I don't see, you see a little drip of water, but I'm not sure if that come off of me going in and out to video, or if it came through. But I'm looking around and I'm not seeing anything that's just soaking wet to me. So, I mean, ultimately between nothing or this, I'm gonna call this a win as well. I'm gonna work my way out of this thing for the morning, because like I said, we're probably an hour, give or take, or so away from the sun popping up. I'm gonna tuck this back in, and like I said, just be honest with you, I'd use that, and then actually I'd pulled that up in and put it around me at one point because I started getting chilly. Like I said, I am not going to say that I was at 22 degrees, that I was in a sauna by any means, but I got through the night. I never got to the point where I needed to give up, tap out, head out of here, or use my phone to call somebody or anything like that. So like I said, it was a little chilly, it was. So that's obviously where your clothing and a lot of the 5 C's, 10 C's that we teach at the school comes in on multiple occasions. Even thing that I was doing to see if I could make it on EDC, but now it's raining. I don't have any rain gear or whatever, so if this was a true life scenario, I'd be stuck in that shelter, or have to wait till it warms up, get wet, and hope I could dry my clothes, which is not an ideal situation. I would need to work myself way down to get water, and obviously now I'm standing out here in a sweatshirt with rain. I'm getting wet. Would I do that in any other scenario? No. Whether people try to contradict anything or not, the 5 C's and 10 C's is a night and day difference between convenience. Simply having a lighter, difference between that and having to make a bow drill. If I didn't have to make a bow drill, that would also save my cordage that I could maybe tied something up. If I had a poncho or 5x7 shelter or anything, it could have been a shelter up in minutes versus hours of trying to build something like this off the landscape. So like I said, the 10 C's work. All right, to close out the overview of this video, a lot of videos out there, a lot of self-proclaimed survival experts or whatever want to claim that carry this, carry that, or whatever. Yes, it definitely helps with everything. It makes everything easier, slows down the fact of how many calories you got to burn by having the proper saw versus a pocket saw. But everyday carry covers you across the board in different scenarios, different situations, and what can get you out of binds. A lot of this stuff works at my work, a lot of this stuff works out in the woods, but combined, I have everything that I need to get by. You've seen I made it through. Can I tell you it was the easiest? As the way I would choose if I had a choice? No, I wouldn't say that. The one thing I will tell you as I talk and put my stuff away is that it can be done. So you've seen it from beginning to end. You've seen the resources that I used. Like I said, there's a lot of times that things, in my opinion, you have to really decide which one works and what fits you best. Do a bow drill, that's great, but it burns a lot of calories, a lot of collection, a lot of carving, a lot of wearing you out. So you gotta decide, do I really need fire or do I really not need fire? Well, if you need to boil water and you don't have a source of water that you feel is safe, if you've got to stay warm, if you gotta cook food, obviously at some point you gotta get to a fire. I didn't have no means other than a bow drill with the scenario that I presented myself. Shelter, same thing. Poncho, 5x7 emergency tarp. I would definitely 100% carry everything that's in the 5-10 C's like we teach to school. If this is something that interests you and you want to further your education on survival, being out, the classes you run in a basic to intermediate to advanced level. Basic, in my opinion only, is a class where you come with gear and it's about 80% gear, 20% knowledge. And we teach you a lot of stuff. Intermediate goes to more like a 50-50. You'll see your pack get a little lighter, your knowledge get a little bit greater. By the advanced class, you're running with very minimal gear, 20% of gear, maybe less, with about 80% knowledge. And you'll see that when you get to a certain level, pocket knife, big lighter, a couple little things in your pocket, you definitely could survive at least an overnight to get out of the woods. Now, if this was a true scenario I showed you in one of the previous clips, at night, during the daytime, I couldn't see a street light. But when it got dark and I was up trying to get, maybe firewood gathered up or get some water in my belly, I seen a light off in the distance that I definitely would probably head toward, obviously, and use that as my method of escape or my method to get out of this situation. My search and rescue closeout part. I would head in that direction. Hopefully it's a house, a substation, or something that somebody might come to or lead me to a road that could get me out of this situation. I thank you for listening. I thank you for watching the video. As always, thank you for supporting TAC Survival and the Pathfinder School. If any of the classes interest you, I have a Facebook page that has my phone number on it. Feel free to reach me at any time. I'll set down a block of time or whatever and go through all the classes or the gear or whatever you may need to see if come to the school and stuff is something that's up your alley. Hope to see you in the future at either an event or a class. We have something coming up about every weekend from now until right now. We're booking for 2027, so we're very fortunate. We had a good 2025, and I think 2026 is going to be even better because there's even more stuff on the schedule. So we hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching.